Welcome back to News for Normies, everybody. If you got a normie in your life that needs to hear some news and you want them to get news outside of the corporate media machine, share this video with them and let me know your comments at the end when you get done watching. So, with that being said, we'll get started. So earlier this week, on Monday, August 5th, the global stock market had a major drop. That is pretty scary because it not only affects like the Wall Street types, but it affects anyone who has a like privately funded retirement account, such as a 401k. So when there's a global drop like that, it does have a major effect on the everyday person, as we've seen in 2008 and in the 20s with the Great Depression. So yeah, if anybody is like happy about that, they're absolutely psycho. Speaking of money problems, the U.S. government accidentally sent the Taliban $239 million. Is anyone else not seeing how our government is the problem? Like, our federal government is the problem with why so many things are messed up today. You know, they'll send our former enemy almost $250 million for God knows what. They've got money for the war in Ukraine, money for the Israel-Gaza war, money for the Taliban, but, our roads are in disrepair. Our veterans can't get help from the VA. Kids go hungry in schools because parents can't afford to get them a lunch. Like, maybe if we started actually focusing on our country, we could solve some of these problems. But, as wise men say, solved problems don't get out the vote. So keep that in mind as we lead up to November. Speaking of major problems in countries around the world, there are major riots going on all across the United Kingdom right now. All this is stemming from their immigration problems they're having by just bringing in people from, pardon my language, shithole countries that are just running rampant all across the UK. We have our problems here with illegal immigration from, Central and South America, but the problems they're facing in the UK are way worse. If I remember correctly, these riots were kicked off because recently a second-generation immigrant, so the child of people who went to the UK, stabbed 3 young girls at like a dance recital. Like, okay, but we don't have gun crimes in the UK. Okay, well, your young girls are getting stabbed at their dance recital. So, as other wise men also said, if you import the third world, you're going to become the third world. In response to this, the government in the UK is not cracking down on illegal immigration because that would make too much sense, but instead they're going to crack down on people who are speaking out against this. And there are several prominent people in the UK that are speaking out against this, but people have been fined and arrested for mean tweets about the current situation. So for anybody in the UK that may be watching this and are kind of agreeing with me, please let me know what your firsthand accounts are of the situation. I would like to know. Okay, well, speaking of more, tyranny and totalitarianism, the NFL here in the United States is going full 1984 by installing facial recognition technology in all pro football stadiums. They're claiming this is to keep like uncredentialed people out of secure areas, but there's another way you can do that without, going full totalitarian and like hire security to keep people out of secure areas. And also, like, how is a camera going to keep somebody from going into a locker room or something when they're not supposed to? Like, cameras don't keep criminals from robbing liquor stores or gas stations or whatever. So how is it going to work in this situation too? It just logically doesn't make sense. Oh, hold on. I didn't put this in my notes, but quick tinfoil top hat theory. The NFL is getting a lot of money from the federal government to implement this technology as a test run, so that way the feds can do it all over the country. Okay, into that. All right. Even more totalitarianism. Tulsi Gabbard, former congresswoman, and I think she's still active in the U.S. military. If not, she was before she tried running for president. Tulsi Gabbard is now listed as a domestic terrorist and is on a watch list from the Quiet Skies program. This program was meant to surveil actual terrorists, such as people who want to, kill people in the name of Allah or something. But, unsurprisingly, is used about 85% of the time on American citizens. It would not surprise me if I am on that list because I am doing this right here. And, we know that tyrants don't like people like me exposing their BS. So, anybody that has paid attention to like the likes of Steven Crowder and Tim Pool are aware of who Dr. Robert Epstein is. And he has talked about in recent months how Google can sway elections from about a 50-50 to like a 90-10 for whoever they want to win. Recently, also, Google was ruled as a legal monopoly. So, with that being said, hopefully they will be broken up into, smaller companies like we saw with Standard Oil back in the day. But considering that Google is in bed with the Uniparty in DC, highly doubt this will happen. Why would the feds, purposely, handcuff their strong arm to sway people the way that they want them to? So, hate to be a little black-pilled on that one, but that's just my opinion on that matter. Kind of a funny story about RFK this week. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. this week admitted to dumping a dead bear cub in Central Park in New York. If you go listen to the whole story, I gotta admit it's kind of funny. It really does sound like a kind of a frat boy type prank. It's gross what happened. It's sad a bear cub was hit by a car, and he claimed that he was going to take it home and skin the bear and have it, taxidermied or whatever. Anyway, this came out because a hit piece was going to be released about him doing this, and he figured, might as well tell the story myself if it's about to come out. So, telling the story himself kind of took the fuel out of the media industrial complex and kind of kneecapped them a little bit on this one. So what am I getting at here? I hope other prominent figures do this kind of stuff in the future to just essentially kneecap the corporate media apparatus, because they really need to be knocked down a peg. Speaking of giant machines that sway people's viewpoints, global ad agencies like Garm and Diageo tried threatening Rumble to remove controversial right-wing personalities, specifically Steven Crowder. So I got to give a huge shout out to Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO of Rumble, for telling these ad agencies to kick rocks. Because of this kind of practice, Rumble and X are suing these ad agencies on grounds of them being monopolies. And when you look into it, I think it was Diageo owns like 90% of global alcohol advertising, so how can you not consider that a monopoly? What will come of this, I'm not sure. Hopefully, it works out for Rumble and X winning this lawsuit. The team at Louder with Crowder did a whole episode about this past week. I'm gonna leave that down in the comments section, I'm sorry, not the comments, the description of this video if you want to learn more about that, because it's a very in-depth topic that I think everybody needs to see. So good news here. The state of Virginia is changing up the way that they're doing voting by going to paper ballots instead of using voting machines. This hopefully will ensure some election integrity within the state of Virginia. Oh man, alrighty. So now the topic that everybody's been talking about this week. Kamala Harris picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her. Almost had a Freudian slip there. She picked Tim Walz to be her vice president running mate. This must have been a shock to Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, because a lot of people were speculating that it was going to be him to be her VP. And just in my opinion, in my observation of the matter, the Harris-Walz ticket is shaping up to be another Bush-Cheney ticket, where the sitting president, should they be elected, sounds like an absolute buffoon on camera, but the VP is the one really calling the shots. I mean, we don't have to look very hard to see why I'm making this distinction. Anytime Kamala Harris talks in front of a camera, I feel like I'm losing brain cells. She doesn't make any sense at all. And I feel like she has secondhand dementia from being around Biden. Also, hold up, I didn't put this in my notes, just thought of this. Where are all the lefties at who in 2020 were screaming no more old white men, but then proceeded to vote for the oldest, whitest dude possible? Now Kamala Harris picks a 60-year-old white dude from Minnesota to be her VP. Do y'all not have a problem with this, or are you just pandering? Spoiler alert, pandering. So, Tim Walz is actually way worse than Kamala on every single issue. In 2020, while Kamala was actively trying to raise funds to get people out of jail for rioting, Governor Walz allowed rioters to destroy cities all across the state during the Summer of Love, to the tune of $500 million of damages and 1,500 buildings and businesses being burned down. Meanwhile, the mayor of Minneapolis was begging for the National Guard to be sent in, to which Walz sat on his hands for 4 days and was just like, nah. That was pretty much his response. Now, I can already hear the argument on this one. Oh, well, if you're a landlord or a property owner, you got insurance, and so you'll be all right. Okay, first off, anybody that's dealt with insurance knows it is a huge pain in the ass. Paperwork out the wazoo, and it takes a ton of time, and by that time it's all said and done, you're going to be bankrupt for paying for stuff out of pocket anyway. Second, a lot of these insurance policies don't cover the cleanup and removal of rubble should something like this happen. So even if the insurance, pays for the cost of the building on the property and stuff, they're not going to pay to have it all cleaned up and rebuilt. So you got to pay for that out of pocket too. So again, you're more bankrupt than before. And also, it's not your property to destroy. So why do you think you have the right to do it? You know what I mean? Like, this is just basic stuff we're taught as kids. It baffles me how leftists do not see the irony of their ways. You try to be the champion of the people, but yet you're okay with this stuff. Anyway, back to the worst governor ever, and I say that over Gavin Newsom, by the way. Although, I don't know, that might be a tight race for worst governor ever between those two. Um, During the COVID um, pandemic of 2020, Tim Walz set up a snitch hotline for people to report their neighbors and other people during COVID if, say, they had too many people over at their house on Thanksgiving. Any politician who is okay with you like ratting out your neighbors like this should be cast as far away from power as possible. They also did this in New York too, by the way. Um yeah, dude, he's awful. He's awful, awful, awful. And if you think he's a reasonable, political choice, dude, again, y'all need to get your eyes checked. Governor Walz also signed legislation that would allow for the mutilation of children's genitalia, or what leftist radicals call gender affirming care for children. Again, if you are okay with this, then you need to reevaluate yourself. And I can already hear, oh, transphobic, blah, blah, blah. Look, man, when you're an adult, do what you want. Cover yourself head to toe in tattoos. Go through with the sex change stuff. When you're an adult, do what you want. Just know there are, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you go and cover yourself head to toe in tattoos, you're not going to get hired on as an elementary school teacher. Not going to happen. Okay? Same with the sex change stuff, going through the transition surgeries and stuff. Some people have very bad outcomes with it. Others don't. So just know, like, there are repercussions for your actions. Just going to leave it there. But to allow this for children is unacceptable in my book. Governor Walz, I'm not done here. Governor Walz also allowed illegal aliens to automatically attain driver's licenses, which in the state of Minnesota would automatically register them to vote, despite this being a blatant disregard of the law. Because if you're not a citizen of a country, you shouldn't be allowed to vote in their elections. I also find it funny how, illegal aliens who don't know a lick of English can get a driver's license in the United States just handed to them by a state government, but voter ID is too hard to get. Does anybody else not see how the logic here ain't adding up? I'm not a mathematician, but this ain't adding up here. My God. Still not done. Walz also called for gun control and stated that, quote, people shouldn't have the same weapons of war that I carried in war, end quote. Dude never went to war, by the way, and the closest thing that he saw to a war zone was Minneapolis in 2020. So what do I mean by he never went to war? Well, I'm glad you asked, viewer. When it comes to his military record, Tim Walz is an absolute coward. Granted, he spent over 20 years in the Minnesota National Guard, but when his unit was going to be deployed to Iraq, he decided to leave the military despite telling his unit that he was going to stay with them as their leader. How do I know this? Well, I'm glad you asked, very observant watcher. When he left the military, Tim Walz was a master sergeant in the National Guard, which was a rank of E8. So he was enlisted rank 8 in the military. And by the way, before I go any further, hey, Shane, I know you're watching, buddy. If I'm wrong about this stuff, let me know. Whether you text me or comment on it, let me know, okay? So, Tim Walz was a master sergeant rank E8, and he was in the process of becoming a command sergeant major, which is rank E9. So he was trying to get a promotion to the next rank in the military. To achieve this rank, one must complete the 2-year course in the Sergeant Major Academy and also stay in the military for another 2 years to keep that rank once they retire. So on any of your retirement paperwork and stuff like that, you can put down that you were rank, Command Sergeant Major E9. So where am I going with this? Well, from what I have learned, since I did not serve in the military, when somebody is going through the, oh man, I just lost it here. Oh, the Sergeant Major Academy, they are given the choice if they want to go in for Command Sergeant Major or just Sergeant Major. What's the difference? Sergeant Major is more of a supporting role for the Command Sergeant Major. So, they are going to try to organize logistics and make sure people are where they need to be and all this other stuff. Again, not in the military, never was. I don't know all the full details. This is just a quick rundown. So, the difference, Sergeant Major, more of a support role, although it's a leadership role. Command Sergeant Major is in direct command of people. So he is in a direct leadership position, should he have achieved that rank. So the fact that he was in course to be a Command Sergeant Major means that he had the intention of taking on that leadership role. But when his unit was going to be deployed to Iraq, he said, "Nah, I'm good, fam," and dipped out. How he got out of contracts like that, I don't know, because you have to sign contracts saying that you're going to stay in for a certain amount of time. So, like I said, while he served 20 years in the National Guard, when it came time for him to do actual hero stuff, he dipped out to pursue a political career, further enriching his own personal life. So, I'll leave another video in the description of this if you want to learn more about it. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown. So yeah, if you feel the same way as me on this one, share this to whatever social media you use to get the word out about this, because the corporate media outlets are trying to paint this guy as a reasonable, moderate Democrat, when in reality he is absolutely awful. So, again, if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, let me know in the comments below. Share this video with your friends, and let's do everything we can to get DJT back in the White House come January of 2025. So, with that being said, everybody, I'm signing off, and I'll see y'all next time.